I'd like to tell you another of my true stories. This one's called the Tripoli camera story. It was 1974. My girlfriend at the time, Sue, and I were travelling across North Africa in our Bedford van, and we had reached Tripoli, the capital of Libya. It was early September, around the time of the 5th anniversary of the Libyan Revolution. We'd been living in our van in Tripoli for several days, and it was late afternoon, and we were parked right beside the sea, right near the promenade, where you could stroll along and look over the docks and the Mediterranean Sea. And it was a lovely evening. The sun was setting, and it really looked very attractive to me. A lovely reddening sky, and this industrial scene with the docks and cranes. So I said to Sue that I'd like to take a photograph. She wanted to just stay in the van, which was parked just across the road. So she stayed there, and I went off with the camera and told her it'd only be about 5 minutes. And we had a very simple Kodak camera for taking what you just call snaps in those days, nothing very sophisticated. Anyway, off I went, walked along the prom, and I studied the view. Really a very romantic scene, a reddening sky, and these some ships and cranes towering above the ships, and of course the sea in the background. So I took 2, maybe 3 photographs, and I'd only been there a couple of minutes, and then a policeman walked up to me. I remember this policeman dressed in a very smart white uniform, and he said to me, "Give me the camera." And I said no. I think he probably asked me again, and again I said no. So he said, "In that case you have to come with me." So I walked along with him along the prom, and then we went down some steps, and this led to an office at a lower level, and inside were a couple of plainclothes guys, policemen I presumed. They also asked me to give them the camera, and again I refused. I mean, why should I? I mean, it's my camera. They have no right to take my camera away from me. Then they took me outside of the office, and across the bay from where we were looking, I could see military vehicles being unloaded from a ship. I don't know what kind of military vehicles they were, but they looked as if they might be British vehicles, maybe second-hand. I really don't know, but they looked like armoured cars and personnel carriers. Again, they asked me to give them the camera, and again I refused. Then they said, "Okay, in that case we have to take you to the police station." So I explained that Sue was waiting in the van, and could we go back and tell Sue what's going on, and so they agreed to this. We walked back to where Sue was, and I explained the situation. I think one policeman got into the van with us, and we followed the other policeman in their Volkswagen Beetle. Off we went to the police station, except that they didn't actually take us to a police station. They took us to some other kind of building. We got out and went inside this building. It didn't look like a police station at all. We were standing in this large hall in a circle. I guess there were maybe 5 or 6 of us, including Sue and myself. Again, they asked for the camera, and again, I refused, or we refused. Sue was just as adamant as I was that we knew our rights, and you can't just take someone's camera off the street like that. And anyway, I said to them, "Well, this isn't even a police station. You said you wanted us to take us to a police station." And one of them said, "No, this isn't a police station. This is a theatre. They have singing here." So I said, "Well, you know, you said you're going to take us to a police station. Come on." So he said, "Okay, then we will." So again, we got back into our vehicles and drove to a police station and arrived in the courtyard. And there, quite a large group of uniformed police officers gathered around us, and some could speak English and some couldn't. but they all demanded to have the camera, which I refused to give to them. It was our camera. They had no right to take it. And this argument went on for quite some time until a senior police officer appeared in plain clothes and a very smart shirt and trousers. And I explained to him that I hadn't seen any military vehicles. I was just taking a photograph of the sunset, and I'm not interested in military vehicles, and on this conversation went. And I guess we were all running out of patience. The police were becoming very impatient with us, and we were becoming equally impatient with the police. And at some point in this conversation, Sue said to me, speaking about the senior police officer, "He's a bloody idiot." Anyway, eventually the police told us that if we didn't give them the camera, then they would take us to jail. Okay, we said, all right, then take us to jail. I have to remember, I was 22, Sue was 23. We thought this was some kind of adventure. So they put us in a vehicle and drove us to the jail, leaving our van behind at the police station. So we got to the jail, got out, walked into the building. And we stood in front of a desk where, sitting behind the desk, was a very burly, mustachioed jailer, prison warden, policeman, soldier, I'm not sure what he was, but he had a khaki uniform on, and on the desk beside him lay a bamboo cane. So he said, "Give me the camera." And I said, "No." He picked up the cane, and he slammed it on the desk, and he said, "Give me the camera!" And I said, "Yes, here, take it, here's the camera." Then we emptied our pockets, and they put all our personal items in plastic bags. And a Libyan police officer or police warden appeared and took Sue by the arm and led her away. And Sue struggled a bit, but realized that it was pointless. And that was the last I saw of Sue. Then a couple of policemen grabbed me and led me away. And we walked down a corridor for perhaps half a minute or so, and then into another corridor, which was all through a locked door, and along another corridor which was very dark, and on the left were lots of empty cells with their doors open, and the prison guard said, "You can sleep in one of these if you want," and didn't look very attractive. And he said, "Or if you like, you can go to the main hall where the other prisoners are." So I said, "Well, can I have a look in the main hall at least?" So we walked to the end of the corridor and turned left, and there a doorway opened out into a very large hall, maybe 30 meters long and 15 meters wide, and walls 5-6 meters high, and above the walls, sort of going across from the tops of the walls, was barbed wire, and up through the barbed wire you could see the sky and the stars. And on the floor, all the way around the perimeter of the room, were men, perhaps 30-40 men, sitting on the floor with their backs to the walls. And I remember I called out in a rather weak voice, "Does anybody here speak English?" And this guy, over on the left wall near the end, put up his hand and said, "Yes, my friend, you come here, my friend, come to me." So I told the guard I would go to this guy, and I walked into the hall, past all these prisoners sitting on the floor, lying on the floor, and sat down beside this man. And he spoke to me in a gentle tone, calming me. And I watched the scene. There were two uniformed guards, both with sticks, and from time to time one of these guards would do a little tour of the room, walking past everyone's feet and looking rather officious and as if he would not hesitate to use his stick. So I told my friend my story, and then he told me his. He was from Syria. He looked like he was about 50 years old, quite a chunky guy, and he had been working in Tripoli as a salesman or a distributor for John Dickinson's stationery. But he was suspected of spying, and he told me that every day that he'd been in the prison, they had come to get him and taken him to another room and beaten him with sticks. And he showed me the scars on his back, great welts where you could see the stick had come down on both sides of his back, several strokes on both sides of his back. And I thought of the photographs that I'd taken. I had definitely not seen any military vehicles, well, at least as well as I could remember. Not seen them from the promenade when I'd taken the photographs, I mean. It was only when I'd gone down the steps and had this pointed out to me by these other police guys or whoever they were that I realised that there were these armoured cars and stuff coming off a ship. So I couldn't be sure if they were on my photographs or not, but I believed that they were not. The Syrian guy explained that most of the other prisoners were there because of alcohol offences, alcohol being strictly forbidden in Libya. One of them was an airline pilot, I remember, and he was still there in his pilot's uniform. And a couple of the prisoners behaved as if they were mentally deranged, shrieking and screaming and writhing, and I don't know if they were drunk or crazy or what, but we were all there together. Supper came, spaghetti, and I told them I was vegetarian, so they gave me just spaghetti with no sauce, and I sat there cross-legged on the concrete floor like the rest of them and ate my spaghetti and tried to hold back my tears. I can't remember if I used a toilet, but I suppose I must have done. And I slept on a sheet of cardboard. So in the morning I woke up, and next to me was the Syrian guy, the suspected spy. And I asked the guard what was going to happen. He said he didn't know. And the Syrian told me that probably they would be developing my film and seeing what was in the photographs. And could be that they might have some questions for me. So I waited, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 hours. Eventually some guards came in and they asked for me. And I thought, is this going to be my interrogation here? I can't remember at what point I saw Sue again, whether it was there at the jail or later when we arrived at the next building that they took us to, or they took me to, which was turned out to be a courtroom. And either way, Sue told me that she had spent the night alone and that the female guard had been quite friendly to her and she hadn't been harmed, and Sue was quite calm. So we were led into the courtroom and we stood there in front of one judge who was sort of behind a big podium desk affair. It was a very modern courtroom, all wooden furniture and light. And he spoke English and verified our names, and then he said, the police found contraceptives in your vehicle. And we explained that we didn't realise that this was a problem in Libya, We were from England, and in England it was quite normal to have contraceptives. So we're very sorry, but we didn't realise that we were doing anything illegal by having contraceptives. Then he said that there was another matter, and through a side door to his right entered the senior police officer who we had argued with the night before. And the judge asked this guy a few questions, and then the senior police officer said, "And the woman called me a bloody idiot." Now, we denied this immediately, but the police officer said that he had worked in London as a policeman for 10 years for the Metropolitan Police, and that his English was perfect. And the judge asked us if we would agree that the police officer's English was perfect. And I remember answering that I thought his English was very good indeed, but not perfect. And the judge said, "It's a very serious matter to insult a police officer." And then it came to me, fortunately, at that moment. I don't know where the idea came from, but I said, as far as I can remember, I mean, there was a lot of arguing last night, but as far as I remember, Sue did not call the gentleman a bloody idiot. I think what happened was that she said that the situation was bloody idiotic. The judge looked at the police officer looked at the judge, and I guess that police officer took pity on us. I guess they had developed the photographs and realised that we were just a couple of silly young people and that we weren't spies. Anyway, they let us go. They gave us back our camera. They developed the photographs. There were photographs in an envelope that they gave us as well. We later looked, and the only photographs that were there, the black and white photographs, it was a colour film. It was a bit annoying that we only had black and white photographs, and they kept the negatives as well. But we had about 6 photos from pots in Tunisia or something like that, but no photographs of any military vehicles. And they gave us back our personal possessions, and outside was our van. We got in the van, we drove to the British Embassy, knocked on the door. A lady came to the door, and we said, "You'll never believe what happened to us." And we told her the story, and she said, "What are you doing here? What are you doing in Libya? Don't you know what kind of a country this is? Now go home." Thank you for listening to my story.